Now introducing Green Party candidate for Parry Sound-Muskoka, Matt Richter.
Well, good morning, everyone. But let's begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, in particular the Ojibwe, the Chippewa, and the Algonquin. I always like to use this as a time to remind all of us that we are forever with gratitude towards the Indigenous communities of our area and across Ontario. They shape and strengthen not only our community, our province, and of course, our country as a whole. I like to say bonjour, hello, ani, and sego. In our community here of Port Sydney, we are just one of many communities across our riding of Parry Sound-Muskoka, which is made up of 6 Indigenous communities to the west of us, including Watamohawk. From here forward, we always pay gratitude to this time and to the Indigenous community's contributions. Everyone, today, as we get closer to the election, it is with great pride and enthusiasm that I get to introduce the Ontario Green Party leader, Mike Schreiner, to share about the importance of fairness for our small businesses here in my village of Port Sydney, but across all of our riding of Parry Sound-Muskoka and to the north of Almaguin. You know, as a small business owner myself, I saw how we did not get the fairness and the consistent communication as to what to do in difficult times, especially during the past 2.5 years. It's not that anybody here in our riding is looking for a handout. We just want equal opportunity and fairness and equal access to markets. With so much at stake going forward and knowing what we have to achieve, I am very excited to hear the words from Mike Schreiner as to how we can move forward and mobilize with great economic prosperity here in our riding and across of Ontario. Everyone, Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mike.
absolutely. Thank you, Matt, for welcoming me to Port Sydney, your home village. And it's just so fantastic to be back in Parry Sound-Muskoka this morning, where we feel the momentum, where we have so many volunteers, where there are signs on so many people's properties throughout the riding, the number of donations coming in, the people wanting to go out and knock on doors and make phone calls for Matt Richter is truly amazing. And it shows what it takes to run a winning campaign as we enter the final few days of this election. And I want to make something very clear to the voters of Parry Sound-Muskoka. Electing Matt Richter means electing a strong voice that will take your voice to Queen's Park, who will fight for you, who will put you ahead of party in politics. He's not going to be the Green Party's voice in Parry Sound-Muskoka. He's going to be your voice at Queen's Park. And so today, I want to say to all the small business owners across this riding, you have 2 champions, 2 people who know what it takes to run a small business, that knows the challenges you've been through, especially over the last 2 years, and who understand how vital this tourist season is that we're now entering for the survivability, the vitality, and the vibrancy and profitability of your businesses, and how vitally important that is to the vitality and vibrancy of our communities, creating jobs that sustain the prosperity of communities in this riding so that we have the financial resources to invest in better public health care, better public education, which, by the way, Matt's also a teacher, and better social services and more affordable housing to improve the lives for people in Parry Sound-Muskoka. So today, I'm proud to reiterate the Ontario Green Party's commitment to creating a level playing field for small businesses. If there's one thing that we learned during the pandemic, is that never again should big box store competitors remain open while locally owned Ontario small businesses are shut down. Small business owners are looking for a level playing field. They don't need a handout. They need support. They need somebody who has their back. And that's what the Ontario Greens are proposing. You know, Doug Ford might roll out the red carpet for big box stores and online big corporations, you know, ministerial zoning orders for the Amazons of the world. The Ontario Greens are going to stand up for the small business owners who live and invest in our communities. So that's why today I'm going to reiterate our Main Street strategy to support small businesses. We will expand the digital Main Street program, not only to help more small businesses be competitive online, but look at innovative ways in which we can create fulfillment opportunities so small businesses in this province can compete with the tech giants, keeping money and jobs in our communities. We will increase funding for the staycation tax credit and expand it to include the hospitality sector. We know how hard hit the tourism industry has been over the last 2 years. The first to close, the last to reopen. And we also know how vital a vibrant hospitality sector is to supporting tourism in this province. And that's why we will increase funding for the staycation tax credit and expand it to include those in the hospitality sector. We will undertake a review of regulations in this province to ensure that small businesses are on a level playing field. You know, one size fits all regulations, primarily written for big businesses, don't always appropriately apply to small businesses. And I'm especially thinking of our small and medium-sized food processors, many of whom have closed over the last 2 decades due to regulatory unfairness. The Ontario Greens will change that. And we will change that in a way that ensures that the regulations that protect the places we love, the nature, the environment, the farmland that is so vital to quality of life in our communities, our food security, and protecting us from climate-fueled extreme weather events remain in place. There's a difference between regulations that protect people, health, and safety, and regulations that put too much burden on small businesses. So we will always stand up to protect people in the places we love. We will create and enforce a Commercial Tendencies Act. We saw during the pandemic what a challenge it was to bring in a commercial evictions ban because the right regulatory framework is not in place to support small businesses. And we've also seen significant rent increases that are putting huge financial burden and challenges on small businesses. And that's why we will bring in a Commercial Tendencies Act to protect small businesses and to give them a fighting chance and a level playing field in our communities. We will change the regulations that prevent boutique and small craft brewery stores, wine stores, and local spirit stores. We will liberate local beer, wine, and spirits to help our local entrepreneurs be able to open stores on our main streets and to make sure that Ontario grown and Ontario produced local beer, wine, and spirits are available to everyone in our communities so we can help these businesses thrive, create local jobs, support local farmers, and bolster local economies. And finally, we will expand and increase funding to support entrepreneurs to create new businesses, especially Black and Indigenous and others for more vulnerable communities, to open businesses, to create economic empowerment, especially for the Indigenous communities right here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. If we're going to have a successful innovation economy, we need to ensure that everyone in Ontario, from all communities in our province, have the ability to start businesses, create job opportunities in their local communities, and ensure that their small businesses and dreams about how those small businesses can solve challenges within our local communities can not only start, but thrive. So I want to say how proud I am of the Ontario Green Party's commitment to delivering new solutions to old problems, to helping small businesses grow and thrive and create jobs in our local communities, to create the financial prosperity we need to make the investments in our healthcare systems, our public education systems, and our social services. And finally, we understand how important it is to address the housing affordability crisis so that your staff have a place to live in this community. I've talked to so many businesses with Matt in Parry Sound-Muskoka who are struggling to fill staff positions because their staff don't have an affordable place to live. And that's why we're committed to addressing the housing affordability crisis and specifically building 1,000 deeply affordable rental spaces right here in Parry Sound-Muskoka to ensure that everyone has an affordable place to call home. And we will protect the nature that is so vital to supporting small businesses and the economy of Parry Sound-Muskoka. So in the last few days of this campaign, I'm calling on everyone in this community to stand up, to speak out, and get behind a true champion for Parry Sound-Muskoka, Matt Richter. Thank you, everyone.
Resume questions. Please use the raise hand function and I will call on you. Looks like first up we have Matt Bingley from Global News. Matt, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, Mike. It's nice to see you spending a beautiful day in a beautiful area. I'm wondering, you said that it's good to be back in Parry Sound-Muskoka, but you've spent quite a bit of time up there based on just during this election. And I'm just wondering, talking about that momentum that you're seeing in that area, do you have a sense of what more you need to do to sort of break through to, because I know how valuable that picking up another seat would be for you?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. And first of all, I'll say I've been visiting a number of communities, especially over the last couple of days. I think we did 6 or 7 events yesterday in various ridings across the province, and obviously working hard in my own riding in Guelph. But we do see a special opportunity here in Parry Sound-Muskoka where we're seeing huge momentum, a huge upsurge in volunteers, donations, sign requests, people just getting behind Matt Richter to be a strong voice for Parry Sound-Muskoka at Queen's Park. And so we know it's just going to take a lot of hard work over the next couple of days. Greens win with people-powered change. Our campaigns are fueled by volunteers and by people who care deeply about their community. And that's exactly why Matt Richter has so much influence in Parry Sound-Muskoka. So many people who live here are coming out to work hard because they know that Matt has the vision for the Parry Sound-Muskoka they want, and he's going to provide the leadership needed to deliver on that at Queen's Park.
I'm just wondering, when you are running up against still a PC candidate with strong name recognition, and you are promoting a lot of ideas that will require cooperation with the government, I'm just wondering how difficult do you see it as, you know, trying to get those ideas through, saying that you're fighting in that area when you will need to cooperate with another government to do any of that?
Well, first of all, both Matt and I have expressed our respect for the other candidates running in this riding. But we also know, and I think I've shown this over the last 4 years at Queen's Park, what a huge influence one Green MPP can have. Most commentators at Queen's Park say we've had an outsized influence, that Greens have punched well above our weight at Queen's Park. And we know that we can even have more influence to improve people's lives by electing Matt Richter and other Greens across this province. And I'll also just quickly say, and I know this conversation is not about Guelph, but I will say that the Ontario Greens' ability to work across party lines, to collaborate with other parties, delivers results for local ridings. Our commitment to putting people before party and politics delivers for your riding. In my own riding, you know, the community has led this, and so I've just been their voice and their champion. You know, funding for major expansion and renovation of our local hospital, funding for youth wellness centers to provide young people with access to the supports and particularly mental health supports they need, funding for nonprofit long-term care spaces so our elders can access the care they need, legislative changes to protect our community's water from a local quarry that the community's been in dispute with well over a decade now, are just some of the accomplishments I've delivered for Guelph. And those are the same accomplishments Matt can deliver for Parry Sound. Supporting an expansion of healthcare capacity in this riding and ensuring that rural communities have a funding formula that recognizes their healthcare needs and also their education needs. Standing up for small businesses and ensuring small businesses have the support they need and a level playing field. Standing up for frontline healthcare workers, which is why Matt's received the endorsement from SEIU, who represents many or most of the frontline healthcare workers in this riding. Standing up for the people who teach our children, which is why he's received endorsements from education unions. Standing up to protect the nature that provides the foundation of so much of the wealth and jobs and prosperity of this riding, and why so many people love to work here. Fighting for a home renovation program that will create 52,000 jobs across the province, but especially creating jobs for all the people, so many people who work in the construction and trades and building sector here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. A plan that will help people save money by saving energy and creating jobs. Those are just some of the ways in which Matt can deliver for this riding by having a new approach to doing politics that tones down the partisanship and ramps up collaboration to put people first.
Thank you. Next up, we have Randy Toms from 93.1 The Border. Randy, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, Mike. Beautiful scenery behind you. My first question relates to, you talked a lot about support for small businesses. In Northwestern Ontario, a lot of our small communities rely on industry, forestry, mining, now in the Rainy River District. And a lot of those mining operations now have the support of First Nations. Do you still support those industries? And if so, what kind of support do you offer them if you can form the government?
Yeah, absolutely, Randy. I've been a huge proponent, and the Ontario Greens have been leading the way, advocating for a mining to manufacturing supply chain, not only to build electric vehicles, but also electric battery storage, so we can better utilize and take advantage of the rapidly declining cost of renewable energy. So we see Northwestern Ontario in particular being perfectly positioned to help make Ontario a global leader in the emerging markets of the new climate economy through mining, through renewable energy, and through forestry. The Ontario Greens have been leading the way in advocating for changes to our building codes to make it easier for timber buildings to be built across the province, because we know that not only do we need to support the forestry industry, we need to ensure that we maximize the value of those forestry resources by having high value added, high margin, and high job creating industries like timber buildings available. And I will say, you know, our candidate in Sudbury, David Robinson, who's a leading Northern economist, has been one of the leaders in setting up Northern Ontario to be a global leader in sustainable mining practices, which can help lower the cost. One quick example is just the electrification of our mines, which helps increase workplace safety, decrease ventilation costs and decrease operating costs for mines. And the Ontario Greens know, and this is why your point about the fact that many First Nations communities are coming out and supporting advances, particularly in critical minerals mining. We know that we need to do that in a way that ensures free, informed, and prior consent from Indigenous communities. And we need to ensure that Indigenous communities are full equity partners in resource industries so we can ensure prosperity for Indigenous communities, economic empowerment for First Nations. And we are committed to resource royalty sharing with local municipalities in the north so they have the financial resources they need to provide the services for their communities, and resource royalty sharing with Indigenous communities so they have the resources they need. And I just want to close by saying I know how hard hit so many tourism operators in Northwestern Ontario have been during the pandemic. I've met with a number of those folks who have talked about particularly how border closures have negatively affected their businesses because so many people from the US travel to Northwestern Ontario. And I just want to say the Ontario Greens will continue to advocate for the financial supports you need to survive this pandemic so you can continue to serve those visitors and to serve your communities by creating jobs and economic prosperity in Northwestern Ontario.
It might be the rains that might be the big problem this year. Another 40 millimeters yesterday. So yeah.
I was going to say the flooding in Kenora district is a huge issue right now. And then obviously the forest fires last summer that required the evacuation of 6 First Nations communities, which I think just highlights once again how important it is to make sure that the Ontario government is making the investments we need to ensure that we are, 1, addressing the climate crisis, and 2, ensuring that local municipalities and communities have climate resilient infrastructure.
That wasn't my second question, but
Oh, no worries. Sorry, Randy.
Go ahead.
yeah,
You got me going there with a good one.
yeah, the you may want to take a look at the Rainy River District. I think we're a lot worse than Kenora. But anyways, my second question relates to, I guess, what's happening in Parry Sound. You mentioned about the volunteerism, the support that's coming out. How can you duplicate that into other northern ridings? I know the candidate here, she's doing a wonderful job, but I think she's doing it all alone. And she goes out, I know she talked our salesperson's head off for 45 minutes. She was in a school class the other day talking to young students in my daughter's grade 6 class, but she's doing it alone or with very few volunteers. How can you duplicate what you're seeing in Parry Sound and Guelph to other ridings in Northern Ontario?
Yeah, Randy, that's a really great question. And I think my experience as an entrepreneur, both starting small businesses and nonprofit organizations, really informs the Ontario Greens approach to building our movement and our party. We know that when you start a new organization, or a new business, you have to go through a process, and you have to go through a growth process. And in politics, that starts with electing your first seat. And then it goes to the second seat, and then you build on that. And that's exactly what we've seen in other provinces. I look at PEI, 1 seat led to 2 seats. Now they're the official opposition in a minority government. I look at British Columbia, 1 seat, 2 seats led to 3 seats. And those 3 MLAs held the balance of power in a minority government. So we know that we have to go through a process to build our party, to deliver the Ontario people want. And that's exactly what we're doing in this campaign.
Thanks, Randy. Next up, we have John McGrath from TVO. John, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
My first question is actually for Matt, if I could. Matt, it is, let's say, for planning purposes, you do win on Thursday night. You are a brand new MPP, but at the moment it looks like the polls are showing that you could very well be the second MPP of a 2-person caucus in a conservative majority legislature. And I'm wondering, are you prepared for some
pretty thankless work over 4 years in opposition.
Thankless but hopefully thankful work with gratitude to the people in our riding and across Muskoka, Parry Sound, and through Almaguin. At the same time, Mike Schreiner has shown what it takes to get through perhaps some of those times where there isn't the outpouring of support or attention, but putting in the hard work. That's what it's all been about for the past 15 years when I first ran in 2007. And I'm in this to make a change with the people of our riding. And whether I get the acknowledgement or our riding gets the acknowledgement, it doesn't matter. It's about what we're setting up for future generations to ensure that they have a prosperous future when it comes to our environment, with our economic conditions, and of course, just good social policy so that we can all live forward in a way that is more caring. I'm more than happy to put in my work, but I know this is a team effort, and that's what this riding is showing. It's not about me, it's about us. And we're sending an incredibly strong message to Queen's Park that we are ready for independent voice, solid reasoning, rational thoughts when it comes to how we progress forward. And we're going to do this together. And the excitement is there from one day to the next. And I'm really excited to be joining Mike down at Queen's Park, if I have that opportunity, for the next 4 years.
And now for Mike, I mean, you've talked about this a little bit already, but this really has been the Mike and Matt show in the Green Party campaign for a few weeks now. You really have been focusing overwhelmingly in Parry Sound-Muskoka. I know you were in some other ridings yesterday, but have you had any grumbling from other Green candidates who maybe haven't gotten the love from the central campaign the way Matt has?
Not at all, John Michael. We've, matter of fact, our whole team has been very supportive of our strategic approach to this campaign. I've been, in constant communication with many of our candidates, and they're all just excited because everybody knows that this is a team effort to build the Ontario people want. And Green candidates across the province are very excited about the momentum, not only in their riding, but especially here in Parry Sound-Muskoka. And so we're a united party that's really excited about, maximizing these last few days of the campaign to share with Ontarians our vision and our policy priorities to deliver new solutions to old problems.
Anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, that looks like all the questions from the Zoom for now.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. And I just want to say to people across Ontario, across Parry Sound-Muskoka, we have 2 days to meet this moment, a critical moment in time to ensure that we support our communities, our small businesses, people searching for an affordable place to call home, access to quality healthcare services, access to mental health services, and a moment in time to address the cost of living crisis so many people are facing, while at the same time addressing the climate emergency. And the Ontario Greens have a plan that offers new solutions to these problems, a plan that says we can crush climate pollution and we can make life more affordable through transportation, through housing, through protecting the farmland that feeds us. And we can do it in a way that builds great communities with clean air, clean water, access to nature, and to protect the nature that protects us from these climate-fueled extreme weather events we've already experienced this year, and we're increasingly experiencing year over year. So here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity to send someone like Matt Richter to Queen's Park to deliver on the Parry Sound-Muskoka you want, the Ontario you want, to deliver the solutions and a new way of doing politics that so many people want. And so I encourage each and every one of you to maximize these last 2 days, to get out and vote on June 2nd, and to encourage your friends, your family, your work colleagues, people in your community, your neighbors to go out and vote on June 2nd. Thank you, everyone.